it's like a blessing, everyone that bled. I just took a 10-piece, made it out the feds.
Got the brother right here. What's your name, man?
Tiny Menace from Trey Gangsta.
Yes, sir.
I pray something shake for my nigga hit 6. Free YD, YA, and Tiny Mad Menace.
It follows that many of them were a Trey Gangsta Crips.
Rap news, street politics, the best hood channel on YouTube, and we back in South Central about to cover the largest federal indictment on the West Side A-Trey gangsters. Now, you know, a lot of people been hitting us about covering cases. They've been asking us to cover an Jefe case, man. You know, I guess some people got on the who's and was asking for paperwork on there and all that. But I feel like not only should we be covering the bad paperwork, we also got to cover the good paperwork too. But that being said, there was a lot of confidential informants on this case, man. People taking the stands, making testimonies, wiretaps. And Maurice Shellman, aka Young and Jefe, or Fly, was in the middle of it all. Like I said, the largest federal indictment in West Side A-Trey gangster history. This is a $20 million Oxycontin operation that was running from LA all the way up to Spokane, Washington. Now, you know, with the A-Treys controlling one of the largest hoods in LA, that comes with two things: a lot of membership and a lot of terrain to operate on. So those two factors right there is how you get a situation where a hood can run an operation like this. Not every hood can do this because, number one, membership and the scope of their territory doesn't stretch that far. Now, we know the A-Treys is operating in multiple states: West Coast, East Coast, New York, Maryland. You know, Chef G from A-Trey out in New York. But this specific setup was when the A-Treys started operating and really making money in Spokane, Washington. But for y'all that don't know exactly who the A-Treys is on the West Side, like I said, controlling one of the largest territories, they operate just a couple blocks south of Harvard Park, all the way down to Century, north to south, and really going from Van Ness to Vermont, east to west. So really, man, they cover like 30, 40 blocks in this section. We know they got the north side over by Florence. They got the original west over by Western. The far west bordering Van Ness. The back west, back by the 99s and the 90s, and the south sides between all of that. So with 5 sides of they hood, we know they bordering a lot of enemies, and they bordering some hoods that they cool with. To the north, they got the 6-0s, who we know is the #1 enemy of the A-Treys, along with the 9-0s to the south, also gridlocked in the deadly war with the ETGs. To the east across Van Ness, Inglewood Family Gangsta Bloods, who we've all heard them be cool with, as well as east of Vermont, they got the Hoovers, who they cool with. Then they got other situations to the northeast with the Menlos, and to the southeast with the 99s, both hoods that they don't see necessarily eye to eye with.
Damn, cuz, he working with the cops, the Draco got the drums, time to terrorize his block. Is you with this gangsta shit or not? Don't bang it on the dead homies if you ain't sliding when they drop. All sides moving, nigga, this is GC. Active giants, but the young hogs raise me. It's free baby schoolie till they let them free. Yeah, it's free baby schoolie till they let them free.
But like I said, they took this operation that they got in South Central all the way up to Spokane and got cracking. So it's said that this whole situation started around 2008, no later than 2008. It's not necessarily known when the A-Treys as a whole really got to Spokane, but LAPD said they was made aware of the A-Treys traveling up there around 2007. Now, this indictment included 62 people in total, and it's confirmed that about 25 or 26 of these people was for show from A-Trey gangsters. Everybody else was ETG associates, co-conspirators, or just dudes and females either claiming or just being around the mix of all the A-Treys. And they broke it down into levels. They had upper level leadership, mid-level leadership, strictly female drug runners, other mid-level distributors and drug runners, and lastly, they had a group labeled A-Trey Gangsta Criminal Associates, all a part of this indictment. Now, with all of them members, we know there's a lot of people with some reputable names that went down on this case. A part of upper level and mid-level leadership, we got dudes like Tiny Sodi, Tiny Menace, Tiny Football, Big Rowdy, as well as Lil Sidewinder. Now, we know those kind of names ring a lot of bells in their section. Names like Sidewinder, Football, Sodi, Menace, Rowdy. These names hold a lot of weight, and these were some reputable members, as well as Young and Jefe going down a part of this indictment. Now, like I said, that was upper and mid-level leadership of this program. Young and Jefe was labeled as a mid-level distributor in this program again. This operation was going on from about 2008 to 2013. So when everything blew up in 2013, we talking about a 21, 22-year-old and Jefe, a real young dude that got mixed up and involved in this situation. But the lead defendant, the main guy, had ties to Washington before everything jumped off. Schoolboy, Arvin Carmen. Now, he had ties earlier around 2004 and even before that with his baby mama, Jessica Clinton, staying up here in Spokane. So it's not confirmed, but he may have been the one to really jump ETG off in this section. But in 2004, February 11th, he was back in California running up bareface inside of a bank with 3 other co-defendants when they got off with 32 racks and ended up getting caught in the getaway vehicle. Now, he was introduced to 63 months. And again, that's back in 2004. So he gets out around 2009 and seemingly turns this whole Oxycontin situation up. Fresh out the feds, he jumps into a $20 million ring. Now, a key thing we have to speak about right here is Washington. You know, a lot of dudes from LA, including myself, have gone up to Washington. And if you know anything about Washington, when you get up there, it's not moving like California, man. It's looking real green, and it's a lot of opportunity that's up there. Seemingly. It's so much opportunity to where you can easily take advantage and your greed takes over. I know this because I caught a case in Washington because shit seemed too easy up there. And this seems exactly how it happened up here. It's like, I'm not gonna say it feels like they a step slower, but if you know, you know. And I'm sure when these dudes got up here, they started moving like, oh shit, you know, I can really do my thing. And we see things get out of hand very quickly.
Was that there was a group of people, the majority of the people charged in the indictment, the commonality was they grew up in the same neighborhood in Compton that was between 83rd Street and Normandy. So it follows that many of them were trey Gangsta Crips, members of that gang, where they were friends of those individuals.
Now, to really jump off from the beginning, we got to go back to Arvin Carmen. It was said that he was the original PLEA man in Spokane, and this being right after he gets out of federal custody in 2009 from that robbery. Now, he's up there with somebody named J-Lo, Joseph Shorts. J-Lo was also from trey, but he was living in Washington at the time in 2009. And while Schoolboy is doing his thing, 3 other individuals get introduced to the scene. We got Nakomi Moore, who's also known as Shakita Bailey in the indictment and labeled as upper-level leadership. And we also got Gilbert Leroy Madison, who goes by Lil Sidewinder. And then third, we got Glenn Turner, aka Big Rowdy. Now, those 4 people were the originals to jump it off in 2009. And something that you're gonna see in the indictment, a lot of these people go by different names, especially the people that came from LA. So with Glenn Turner, Big Rowdy, when he went to Spokane, he changed his name to YD, or Young Diamond. Lil Sidewinder went by Big Dog, and Schoolboy went by Schoolie or Zeus. And after they set up shop and start getting everything cracking, a dude named Kevin Darnell Miles, aka Nino, who was an trey associate, not necessarily a full-fledged member, is said to have funded Big Rowdy getting up there. So he comes and he starts laying groundwork as well. Now, Kevin Miles played the role of the presentable member. He's college educated. Like I said, he's not full-fledged with the gangbanging, so he can move around different circles and open up different doors for these trey members in LA and in Spokane. And it was said once they all got up there, J-Lo, who was usually known for selling crack in Washington, flipped over and started selling pills with Schoolboy. And with the money being right, dudes like Peanut and Mel, both from trey gangsters, also made it to Spokane, Washington in 2009. Now, at this point, like I said, Schoolboy was the PLEA man in Washington, so he was taxing everybody's motion. The key thing is these people couldn't just come up here and just get some pills from Schoolboy and hit the street. They had to come with their own work. And then when they ran out of that work, they would then buy from Schoolboy and be taxed on top of Schoolboy, because Schoolboy not only had the plug, but he also had the foundation laid. He had the whole network for these people to operate in safely, so to speak. But at some point, like I spoke on with that greed, the greed prevailed and a meeting was held where everybody decided that they didn't want to pay taxes to Schoolboy anymore. The only person that said he really stayed by Schoolboy's side was Lil Sidewinder. So eventually, J-Lo, with already having legs in Washington, he was already staying out there. He rented a big house and had everybody that we just spoke on go to the house and operate and trap out that house, except for Schoolboy. So either you was coming up there to rock with Schoolboy and you pay tax to Schoolboy or whatever you have it, or you rocking with J-Lo because J-Lo had his own plug. And what we seen in this indictment was Schoolboy had a network of females that he was dealing with. Multiple females, including his baby mama. So pretty much as we see, dudes wanted to separate from Schoolboy. And further down the line, we see Schoolboy implement a bunch of females that he was dealing with to start doing his movements along with Sidewinder. And it said that Sidewinder started doing the legwork for Schoolboy, and dudes like J-Lo didn't really want Sidewinder performing for Schoolboy anymore. They didn't want him to do Schoolboy legwork. They pretty much seemed like they was hating. I ain't gonna lie, man. It seemed like some dirty politicking was going on. So they told Sidewinder he probably shouldn't even be up here rocking no more. And the key thing is Schoolboy wasn't an original A-Trey gangster. It said that he's originally from Hoop. So it could be that situation right there is why things went beyond the tax with Schoolboy. And maybe that's why dudes like J-Lo wanted to cut Schoolboy out the situation. So another thing some may ask is why Washington? So at that time, and this reigns true for a lot of different products, the product is cheaper to get in LA. Oxycontin at the time was a lot cheaper to get in LA, which means it sells for cheaper. So when you get that cheap product and you take it up to Washington where it's less accessible, now these dudes is making hand over fist. They killing the game, bringing these cheap pills from LA to Washington, especially with a strong clientele base. So this is why these dudes really is wanting this territory in Washington. Now, like we spoke on, J-Lo was trying to get Sidewinder to get out the way with helping Schoolboy, but Kevin Miles was also with J-Lo. And remember, Kevin Miles, Nino, he also not only funded Big Rowdy's trip up to Spokane, but he also helped Lil Sidewinder get up and start his thing in Spokane. So Sidewinder's kind of stuck in the middle as to what he should do because he got people he trying to stay loyal to, so he says, on both sides. But this is where a lot of different things start to break off underneath Schoolboy and J-Lo.
And that is because the first element that the judge instructed the jury on is that Mr. Carman had to commit a continuing series of 3 or more narcotics violations. That is, Mr. Carman had to. Defendant Carman committed 1 or more of the following narcotics transactions, and it lists conspiracy, distribution of a controlled substance, possession with intent to distribute controlled substance, and use of a communication facility in furtherance of drug trafficking crimes.
So Nakomi Moore, who was also a high-level member, all these people right here are, of course, high-level organizers or co-conspirators in this case because they was here for the jump-off. But Nakomi Moore is said to have established her crew consisting of Catrell Bully, aka Slim, or some may know him as D3 or Baby Derange, as well as Grump 6 or Rah-Rah, also from A-Trey Gangsters, as well as a couple other females under her. Now Catrell Bully, D3, is D3 the Gas Man, another one of they artists coming out the 80s. He was involved in this situation as well, man. Like I said, a lot of dudes from A-Trey was involved in this. He was defendant number 10 out of 62. So he was also out here doing his shit with everybody else in Spokane, Washington. And then Kevin Miles further developed his crew that consisted of Big Rowdy and Donald Lynch, aka Young Mo, who also went by the name of Flossie or Lil Bit up in Washington. Now with both of them working under Kevin Miles, Young Mo also introduces DeAndre Megan, Baby G-Man or Flacco, into the situation. More A-Trey gangsters coming up to Spokane, Washington. And eventually this led to big names like Tiny Sodi, Richard Jamal Haynes, who also went by Swag or TS or Tiny Schoolie in Washington, and Alex James, Tiny Menace, along with Tiny Football and Lael Lisby, who was said to be one of the top guys coming out the north at this time, and Tymar Haynes, Tiny Outlaw, also ended up making their way and start really putting in work in this pill game in Spokane, Washington. Now, Nakomi Moore this whole time is J-Lo's cousin, and it said that she started to also operate on a very high level. She got a whole little team under her, and there was a lot of competition, especially over the phones and the little buyers that they had on the street. So things started to kind of get out of hand, man. And it really all started with that meeting at the big house when everything split into J-Lo and Schoolboy's crews. So Sidewinder ends up going back down to LA and starts to operate out there. Kevin Miles ends up getting arrested in 2010, and he took his ass back down to LA as well. After that, a couple people start moving around trying to dodge the heat. But at this point, it said that this is when Young Mo really started to develop his own structure and step in where other dudes was stepping out. Now, at this time, there was a member by the name of Loon, Marlon Johnson, who was also living in Washington. He had a run-in with the folks as well around this 2010 time. And this is when dudes started having their names written down and things started to be taken account of. But after this, we see dudes like Northside Gray, Anthony Miller, who also went by the name Tony in Washington. He also comes up and starts working with Young Mo, a part of his crew, starting to move things. Now, when Tiny Sodi got up there, it said that this dude was really getting to work and putting it down. Now, we know the Sodi name is a big name in this situation, and 3 of the Sodis was kind of involved in this situation, low-key, where you had Baby Sodi, Tiny Sodi, and Young Sodi. Now, Sidewinder is the one who called Tiny Sodi on behalf of Schoolboy and basically said that the older homies wanted Tiny Sodi to start getting his feet wet and getting some chili out here in this pill game in Washington. But at this point, Baby Sodi was also trying to come play ball. But with Tiny Sodi already starting to run a hard program, he kind of had these stipulations where it's like, man, nobody finna give you a free ride up here. Like I said, everybody had to come with their own work, whether you sent your work with one of the runners that was bringing it from LA or you bringing it yourself, but you couldn't come empty-handed, and you got to be ready to follow up under a program. So Baby Sodi, not being named in this indictment, you know, it seemed like he fell off to the wayside, but Tiny Sodi started to take a strong grip. And it said that a couple dudes were scared of this dude. It said that Northside Gray at one point was hiding from Tiny Sodi up here. There was a lot of friction that was going on, a lot of competition in this pill ring amongst the ETGs. But now by the time it's 2011, Tiny Sodi is starting to re-up with Lil Sidewinder and Schoolboy.
Little homie like, what this hoe? Nigga, half $100 from that G gang, the one off Florence. You can ask about me. You ain't never caught a body for the G, then don't come around me. Who could? Never seen him for. I don't know about him. My squad went down for a whole summer, and I slid without him.
You ain't ready to compete with 83rd. We be stabbing shit. She be like, what gang Crip you from? All of them, bitch.
It's that G flow.
Now here we are in 2011. Like I said, a couple people have been knocked, and they've already been operating out here strong for a good 2 years. And a good amount of people from A-Trey Gangsters have gone back and forth from LA to Spokane, Washington, and the people have taken notice. So you have the Spokane Regional Drug Task Force, Idaho State Patrol, Washington State Patrol, the county and the sheriff's office, LAPD, LAX police, and the DEA. It's all starting to pay attention to the A-Trey Gangsters in 2011. So you have dudes like Sidewinder who are operating out there are now operating back full-time in LA and are recruiting people to take pills up to Schoolboy and other members of A-Trey, whether it's Airplane, the Greyhound, whatever, and everything's being noticed. And like I said, with Kevin Miles, his run-in with the law in 2010, which sent him back to LA, made them people aware of $157,000 that he had at the time of his bump in with them. And when the whole new crew, Tiny Sodi and them, went up to Washington a couple months after Tiny Sodi, Schoolboy's homegirl Sharita Horn, and Michelle Anderson also got their names buzzing on the scene. Now, Schoolgirl is playing a pivotal role, especially when young Aunt Jefe gets into the picture. We gonna get to that. Now, Michelle Anderson did play a pivotal role in this situation. She is named in the indictment. She had a relationship with Tiny Sodi at the time, but she was also working on the blade. She makes an early exit because she ended up getting killed when she went back down to LA by her pimp. But she'd probably be higher up in the indictment based on how close she was to some top members. But at this time, like I said, Spokane has communicated and have shared resources with LAPD. And we've seen dudes from LAPD be up in Washington watching the A-Trays. And we've seen the Spokane Task Force come down to LA and kick it at St. Andrews Park just to observe how the ETGs are operating.
But we out here, you know what I'm saying? It's my nigga Ant, young Ant. And y'all do know, we put our life on the line for this shit here, man. So, you know, anything can happen. It is what it is, but it's all love. Most definitely. Let's go check out St. Andrews. Let's go check out St. Andrews. It's lit. Hop out.
And at this point, early in 2011, they started using what's called pen registers. Now, a pen register is a device that records phone numbers that are dialed from a specific phone line. So it's pretty much like a middleman caller ID without the recording function of a full wiretap. So they was pretty much just watching what phones was calling who and trying to get as much data that they could about those phone numbers before they issued the full wiretap. And at this time, they already seen a lot of the spots that the A-Trace operated in from LA all the way up to Washington. So they implemented pole cameras. Cameras, simple as that. They go up on poles and watch a fixed location for movement. They had 5 of those between Washington and LA. And at this point, this is when they started implementing things like trash pulls and what they call sneaking peeks. So a sneaking peek would be when somebody was hitting the airport, they would have suspected money in the bag. When they checked that luggage, the DEA or other federal officers or LAX police would be there to intercept the bag, look into the contents of the bag, document it, and then let it slide back to the target like it's never touched. So they started to play some cold games against these A-Tray members. Now, 2011 also struck to be a big year in terms of cash seizures as well. October 2011, they took 32 grand from 2 female runners that they had in LA, Aronika DeRosso and the female they called Jefe or Jebi Maiden. They got stopped with 32,000. Also in October 2011, they stopped Peanut, again, who was up there with Mel, Harry Johnwell, who also went by the name of Nut or Lil C-Dog. They stopped him with 16 bands. And everything seemingly took a turn when they stopped Daniel Hunka, aka D-Boy, in December 2011 with 206,000. And D-Boy goes down for this. I mean, he's on a buy not too long after this. This is the first person that we gonna talk about who was a rat in this case, D-Boy. Now, D-Boy directly snitched on Aunt Jefe. The key thing is, with Daniel Hunka, everybody thought he was already bad. This is the crazy part, man. And this is what I was talking about with young Aunt Jefe being a young dude on this case. Tiny Sodi and Schoolgirl was not dealing with Daniel Hunka because he had too many arrests and there was some questions about this dude. Mind you, he just went down with 200,000 and then he gets out and he's back functioning with everybody in the gang. Leadership takes a step back, but still allows him to deal with the younger dudes that are still coming from LA looking to get their feet wet. How? He was allowed to deal with young Aunt Jefe. Now, the feds did say that he was playing both sides. They labeled him, quote, a bad informant. He was making controlled buys for them, snitching and telling with audio taps, as well as doing his own side work when he wasn't an informant with the feds and still gaining money from the pill game. So they labeled him a bad informant, but he was also a snitch and a rat in the streets. And I don't understand how they still let him, if anybody had questions about this dude, how did they let him touch the little homies? And this is the thing where people were saying that everybody kind of started moving for self. Daniel Hunka presented some form of value in some way. So it was like, let me not completely cut this dude off, but let him deal with the young homies so we can still profit. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, with Schoolgirl, she dealt directly with Aunt Jefe multiple times. So let's jump right into it. Young and Jefe hit Spokane, Washington.
I'm a felon for the record, I still carry metal. I'm a felon, I be stepping, ain't no forgery. Put them niggas 6 feet when it was war with me. Had no mercy on the streets, bet the Lord agree. Shit we never speak on, niggas always preach. What's the topic? Get some money, can we buy beats? How you feeling in the farm when you in them seats? When you coming from the ghetto, struggled in them streets. I made a couple 100,000, I seen every leak.
Now, Jefe jumped into the PLEA game already in LA, and it seemed like he was waiting to get cracking and take his talents up north. But before the wiretap phase, like I said, it was still pen registers. The confidential informant started to play around in 2011 and 2012. And that brings us to July 6, 2012. Still in LA though. LAPD confidential informant hit up Jefe to purchase $5,000 of prescription pills at the Everything Gold store. Now, like I said, Schoolgirl was somebody that was instrumental with Jefe being a part of this movement. Schoolgirl is the direct homegirl to Schoolboy, Arvin Carmen, the lead defendant on the case. That Everything Gold store was on 88th and Normandy. That store stood for ETG. That was Schoolboy's store. He would operate between LA and Washington, running that store, conducting business, and really putting it down, making sure that he was trying to have some legit money in there on the side. But the ETG store is the meetup spot on July 6th with the confidential informant and then Jefe. Now, the informant goes back and tells the LAPD that Maurice Shellman and Jefe is working for Schoolboy, and he makes the deal. But shortly after this deal, Schoolboy calls the LAPD confidential informant and advises him that he's cutting Jefe out, and you only gonna be buying from me now. That sounds like some New Jack City shit. You know what I'm saying? So he said, you only gonna buy from him, or you gonna buy from Lil Sidewinder. He was still rocking with Lil Sidewinder based on the loyalty that Sidewinder has showed when everything has split up 2 years prior in Washington. Now, like I said, this July 2012, 1 month later, August 7th, the Title III is initiated. What is the Title III? The wiretap. So they have enough evidence, they submitted the warrant, and they ended up putting taps on 7 phones that they called target telephones. TT1, TT2, all the way through to TT7. Now, like we spoke on, they labeled Jefe a mid-level distributor. There was a lot of people ahead of him. He's defended 35 out of 62 on this indictment. But the reason why they kind of went heavy on him is because he was in direct communication with the higher ups in this situation, and he had a lot of communications on these target telephones, specifically with Schoolgirl. Now, when the wiretap started happening early August, they started to see Jefe, who also went by YA or Young Ant or Fly in Washington. They seen him doing a lot of movements and his name being brought up from people like Tiny Sodi, Schoolgirl, and also being referenced by Tiny Football, Schoolboy, and Lil Sidewinder. Top defendants had Young Jefe name in their mouth on these target telephones. Like I said, he was dead in the mix. Now, him and Schoolgirl used to go together to do a lot of deals together throughout Spokane. And we seen it was even one point where she called Jefe talking about he messing up her business because he not answering the phone. So they had a real good relationship with making things happen up here. But that July sale with the confidential informant with the LAPD would not be the last time Jefe was on the back end of a controlled buy with a confidential source, which takes us to Samantha Madsen, also known as CS9, Confidential Source 9, who was a prostitute at the time that signed a contract with the feds to start working as a confidential informant in order to work off some of the bunk charges that she had piled up over the years. Just some bullshit. Really no reason. They had none on her. She just didn't want to sit in the county for a couple days, signed up to be a confidential informant. Not only was she working off charges, but they also paid her. She was monetarily compensated for her cooperation in this. She was a drug user and a prostitute, and this wasn't the first time that she participated as a federal informant for the police. So we still in 2012. The lead detectives on this case, who also referred to this case on a grading scale of how good this case was, labeled it an A-. These dudes was doing their thing and man, they hit some high barriers in terms of this operation. But November 8th, they laced up Samantha Madsen with the wire and dropped her off to make that telephone call to Aunt Jefe and G Stutters, aka Carlin Romeo Tones, who did a lot of dealings with Aunt Jefe in Washington. Now, like I said, the LAPD was also up in Washington doing surveillance, and it said they was just driving by one time and they just happened to see, like, oh, that's Aunt Jefe and G Stutter. You know, so this is how Washington came privy and really started to know these is real A-Trays that's out here and really doing some work. But nonetheless, they set up Samantha Madsen and she called Aunt Jefe, man, jumped in the back seat and did the deal with Aunt Jefe and had them on audio recording, pointed everybody out who everybody is. And for the most part, they had Aunt Jefe in the bag with this. But there was also another snitch that was implemented, a dude named Nick DeCaro. Now, Nick DeCaro was said to be the pill man before the 8 trays got there. Aunt Jefe used to sell his work to Nick DeCaro and put tax on it, so Nick DeCaro would have to overprice his work, therefore making him void in the situation. Why go to Nick DeCaro and pay this amount when I can go to Aunt Jefe and get it for the low? You know, this is what was going on out here. And this is the drug game. This is how it's played out. But this is also what turned Nick into a snitch and a hater. He made statements to Samantha Madsen and said that he didn't like how flamboyant Aunt Jefe was. He said he was too arrogant. And he even made statements saying that he was contemplating robbing Aunt Jefe, to where Aunt Jefe said, people get killed like that. Now, nothing ended up happening to Nick DeCaro, but he's also somebody that's a rat in this case. Not a confidential source, but like I said, there was many confidential sources, at least 9 in Washington alone, plus the ones in LAPD, and then a grip of people and some names that y'all may be surprised about took the stand and testified against the ones that took this situation to trial. We gonna get to it. Now, on these wiretaps, like I said, this went on from August all the way to December of 2012. A lot of communications were had, especially between Schoolgirl, who also goes by the name of Star in Washington, and Aunt Jefe, where it said they spoke about a vehicle that a dude named Brandon Warner had purchased. Young Aunt Jefe was seen in this vehicle. Guess what? Brandon Warner was also a snitch. He was also playing the role of a confidential informant, and the whole case was really in the bag with all these people cooperating. And there started to be a lot more cash seizures and confirmed airline travel. In March 2012, Big Rowdy was caught with a measly $1,400, but it was noted. Also in March 2012, one of their female runners, Treasure Brown, was stopped with an unknown amount of $1,000 bundles. In June 2012, Mercedes Reeves, who was one of Schoolboy's females that he was smacking, was caught with $28,000. August 2012, Portia Marcus, who also went by Flasha or Sasha, was caught with $73,000 in a sneak peek. Now, this was not seized. This is one of them sneak peeks where they looked in her suitcase, found 73 racks, and let it go. But a situation with Erica Woods after this, in September 2012, they caught Erica Woods boarding a flight, and the DEA, as well as them other detectives, had kind of settled on a number that they was gonna let pass. They was gonna let her take a set amount of money up to Washington. They opened the bag up, they find $107,000, but the whole game changed. She also had pills. They said they couldn't let the pills go, so they ended up confiscating the whole situation, and that paper was supposed to touch Big Rowdy's hands. So at this point, everybody tried to get everything back together to make up for that, and this is when they decided that it was probably best to start catching the dog, the Greyhound, instead of going on these flights. But the police, at this point, it's September 2012, everything is already cracking. Everything's full-fledged, blown out of proportion. The next month, October 2012, they catch Tiny Sodi with 7 racks. So all together, all the seizures that they made in their whole investigation totaled about $930,000. They ended up coming up with almost $1 million in seized cash. So you can just imagine how much wasn't seized. Like I said, this is a $20 million operation.
I pray something shake for my nigga hit 6. Free YD, YA, and Tiny Mad Menace. Black bone, stay strong, you almost home. I'm in the stew, going hard, some niggas can't get on. On probation, but a nigga still toting heat. Cause Lord knows shit is wicked in these LA streets. My nigga West boy running up a bag. Stay on your grind, third, don't let nothing get you off your path. I hold this cheat shit down like an anchor. You wonder why? Cause I'm from Trey Gangsta. I'm from Trey Gangsta. 3 times, it's for Trey Gangsta.
Now, in this whole situation, with all these pills moving, we talking about shipments that would have 1,500 to 3,500 pills in it every shipment. Every other day, 2,000 to 3,000 pills moving. Sometimes in one day, they was talking about 9,000 pills moving. We talking about $180,000 being made in 1 to 2 days off these moves, bringing in pills from LAX all the way up to Spokane, Washington. Like I said, Schoolboy had a bright idea coming out the feds from that robbery case. He's also dealing with guns as well. They've recovered a grip of guns in this whole situation for no reason, honestly. It didn't seem like they was beefing with anybody other than what they had going on in LA. You know, none of that shit is even mentioned in this whole situation. These dudes are just trying to get some chili out here. So the guns, you know, I can understand you feeding the streets, but all them guns that was recovered involved the ATF into this case as well. And like I said, Schoolboy was dealing with a lot of females that was doing these movements at this time. Like I said, Jessica Clinton, his baby mama, Sally Guthrie, Joisha Jefferson, Mercedes Reeves. These was all females he was smacking on. And he had his homegirl, Schoolgirl, who was said to be like a walk-on. Also kind of not a fully official member. She didn't get put on the A-Tray. But again, she was a walk-on. She was dealing with Lil Sidewinder at the time. So this is how they was having a whole bunch of females move around. Like I said, it's a whole group of nothing but female co-conspirators and runners that was doing all this work, man. And when you see, there was 4 people that took it to trial. You had Schoolboy, you had Dante Blackman, aka Paco, you had Brandon Chavez, who was a dope fiend, and you had Carlin Romeo Tones, G Stutter, who spent a lot of time with Jefe. Now, G Stutter seemingly kept it solid, man. They had him in that room, and it seemed like he wasn't breaking, man. He didn't take the stand, and his interview was only 20 minutes compared to the hours and hours that they said Lil Sidewinder and Schoolgirl set up in that room for. Like I said, he spent a lot of time with Jefe, T-Crazy, and football, but he didn't point anybody out in no pictures. He didn't want to do that. And you know, when they was trying to play with him over the prison time, he took it on the chin, said whatever it's gonna be, he just hope it's 10 or less, and proceeded to shut his mouth. Those 4 dudes took it to trial. What we seen is most of them female drug runners took the stand. Sally Guthrie, who Schoolboy was smacking on, took the stand. She was in her feelings, talked about how he left her in the hotel for days on end. You know, she felt like she was done wrong, so she took the stand. Schoolboy baby mama took the stand, talking about all the money that he was bringing in without having a job. Brandon Chavez, who was on the case, who was fighting the case on trial with Schoolboy and G Stutter and Paco, also took the stand in his favor. Another confidential source, Raylynn Andrews, who participated in controlled buys with Flacco, Tony, and Loon. Man, she was a nasty CS. She made sure the folks stayed up to date with the target telephone numbers, make sure they was tapping the right numbers. She took the stand. And like we spoke on with that rat, Daniel Hunka, he also made controlled buys with D3 and Tiny Sodi. So that testimony stand went crazy, man. But 2 people, man, that kind of hit home, that testified, told everything on everybody, including Jefe, everybody at every level possible. Lil Sidewinder and Schoolgirl both took the stand and testified against their co-defendants.
Love my niggas like a blessing, everyone that bled. I just took a 10-piece, made it out the fed. Blue flag, red beam, they wanna kill me dead. Took the racks up out my pocket, placed it by my head. Love my niggas like a blessing, everyone that bled. I just took a 10-piece, made it out the fed. Stepping dirty through the city, I pray by the bed. Soldier rack like Mac Noya, it's an honor pledge. Champagne on the Sprinter, it's my kind of med. Tryna add these zeros up, make these commas red. Got a temper pretty fatal.
Now, they both had multi-hour interviews. Again, they was also seeing each other on the streets. So they seemingly colluded and said, you know what? I'ma just separate myself. Sidewinder said he felt like it was right to take the stand because he didn't like what this situation with this operation was doing to the homies. He didn't like the greed, the division. He felt like it was only right to bring his homies down. That's an excuse if you ask me, because his ass got out in 2018. A schoolgirl told so much she was out in 2016. And now we see them both living together out of state. Mind you, after everything, the shit hit the fan. February 28th, 2013, all doors was kicked in. You had multiple people that went to jail in Washington and multiple people that had went to jail in LA. They was kicking doors from Hawthorne all the way up to Glendale and had Moreno Valley and San Bernardino on the list as well. After all the tactics used, they was also using GPS trackers on people's vehicles. Everything blew up February 28, 2013, where the feds said they had 36 discs of evidence, not even counting the people that took the stand, but they of course also had at least 9 confidential informants as well as the CIs in LA. They were scanning people's social medias. Man, they got some of the phone numbers that they use in the wiretap from Facebook talking about, hey, tap in with me, and people putting their number on there. The key thing with the feds, man, as we see, they make sure they have everything tied up, all I's dotted, T's crossed before they bring your ass in so you can't move. I don't know what these niggas really took it to trial for. The only person that seemingly was successful in a way in trial was G Stutter. Again, G Stutter was with Aunt Jefe multiple times. He was there when Samantha Masson had the wire, when they hopped in a black Navigator and did the deal. He was also there at a spot called Flamin' Joe's, which was a big meetup spot for them in Washington. The people watched Aunt Jefe serving outside of that spot and taking phone calls as well as conducting business with G Stutter there. So G Stutter was somebody that was really rocking with Aunt Jefe, and they was on the same charge together, which was count 27, distribution of oxycodone hydrochloride. Now at this time of the trial, Aunt Jefe had already took his deal. We're gonna touch on that, but G Stutter's lawyer was pretty much saying, hey, y'all watch Aunt Jefe do everything. G Stutter didn't do that on count 27. And this is a rare occurrence. We seen a not guilty from the jury for G Stutter, even though he was convicted and found guilty of count 2, conspiracy to distribute oxycodone hydrochloride. But everybody else, I don't know why they took it to trial. It was an embarrassment. And it was nothing but an opportunity for everybody and their mama to get up there and testify and make them look stupid. And that's what everybody did. All the females and some of their homies went up there telling. Now, Aunt Jefe, on July 17th, 2014, submitted his plea of guilty. He was smart in seeing all the evidence against him, the confidential informants buying off him, the wiretaps. Like I said, even though they labeled him a mid-level distributor, they treated him as somebody that was higher up because of the communication he was having with them people up top. And when he was arrested, he tried to get out. They wasn't having it. They denied his motion for release because they were saying that he had no place to go for real. They didn't trust the addresses he had set up. But he was found guilty of count 27, the conspiracy to distribute a mixture of substance containing a detectable amount of oxycodone hydrochloride. And they found it fit to give young Aunt Jefe 120 months, 10 years. But he did a little bit less than that. He did 7 and 3 on supervised release and got out in 2021. But what y'all been wanting, it was no snitch paperwork on Aunt Jefe, man. They said he was the good people's, and he is. A lot of other people went bad on this case. He stayed solid, and he did what he said he was gonna do. He's out making legal money, doing his shit. Y'all make sure y'all go follow, like, comment, subscribe on Aunt Jefe page. Somebody who took this shit on the chin.
What's the good old deal? It's your boy Young Aunt Jefe. Don't care about number what the check say. Make sure you go ahead, like and subscribe, because it don't cost you nothing to press that button. And if you ring that notification bell, I'm going to bring you mail.
Like I said, this dude was 22, 23. This the last thing niggas is really thinking about. This kind of operation at 22, 23, even if niggas is out in the streets, the last thing you thinking about is the DEA, the ATF, the feds, the marshals. You know what I'm saying? He jumped into some shit, and I think some of the people didn't fully have his best interest. A lot of people was out there looking for self, and even with that being the case and the fact, he still stayed solid, didn't take the stand, took a deal, got out the way, did his time, and we see him doing this shit now. But what we did see, he was trying to get out early in 2020, man. He wrote a letter talking about COVID. They wasn't having it, man. He only had a year left. Judge still wasn't having it. They made him write the whole shit out. But when he did get out, there was a mishap. I'm gonna keep it 100, and he cut off his ankle monitor in the halfway house. They was about to sit him back down for failing a drug test. He went on the run, man. You know, some crazy shit. Hey, after doing 70, like, fuck. But he cut the ankle monitor off. They gaffled his ass back up, man, but he's still here today. You know, not really, you know, we ain't heard him speak on the story too much. That's why I'm glad we had the opportunity to do it. I seen Street TV started to touch on it a little bit, you know, but I get it. Some shit may be sensitive. Some shit may not be, you know, motherfuckers may not want that out there, but this is what it is. Like I said, it's no problem when we show bad paperwork, but like I said, and Jefe paperwork, good paperwork. But some of these dudes on here did have bad paperwork. It is what it is. Every hood is susceptible to that. But y'all also make sure y'all go support D3. Man, he was sentenced to 80 months on this case. We see him out doing this thing still with the members and rapping as well as Jefe. And y'all go support Tiny Menace. They gave him 156 months. He's also outside again. We seen him at Second Call with Skip Townsend doing his thing, giving back to the community, man. Y'all make sure y'all support everybody that stays solid on this case and that's back outside representing their hood. But some people with some powerful names that also went down on this case. Like I said, we had Tiny Sodi. He's resting in peace right now. I believe he died in prison in 2018, man. Tiny Sodi didn't make it out. He was sentenced to 25 years in this case. And we already know Lil Sodi also resting in peace, man. But this case sent a lot of people up the river, man. A lot of people face some really hard time in this situation. And it's just an eye-opener to people who may be thinking about this game, man, especially the drug game, the fed game, man. They're handing football numbers. They're not lying. Even the runners for getting caught doing some shit one time, 36 months, 100 months, 120 months, 62 people on this case, man. Like I said, them people that was telling, of course they got out. Lil Sidewinder, he snitched. Again, he got out in 2018. Like we said, Schoolgirl also snitched, got out in 2016. Big Rowdy just got out in 2022. Kevin Miles, the smart dude, got out in 2022. Tiny Football comes home next year, 2026. Nicole Moore, who was running her program, her cousin was J-Lo. She just got out 2024. And when I say out, I mean completely released from the Bureau of Prison and the whole federal stick. You know what I'm saying? They could have went to the halfway house or whatever the case is, but they was back fully functioning in the streets at these years. Loon, released in 2020. G Stutter, released in 2019. Of course, you know, his lawyer was trying to, you know, pin that shit on Jefe, but it is what it is. And Jefe already took his deal. You know, he ain't do no weird shit that we seen. Northside Gray was released in 2017. Joisha Jefferson, she was found with 1,000 pills in the trunk, released in 2018. Bone, released in 2020. But Arvin Carmen, man, like I said, he was fresh off of federal robbery, man. He was turned up. And it seemed like he's the reason why this whole shit got turned up. Of course, we didn't see him take the stand, but everybody told on him. All the females, everybody who took the stand was telling on him. That man is in USP Victorville till 2056. They gave him 50 years, man. Schoolboy. It is what it is, man. Like I said, the biggest situation coming out them West Side A-Tray gangsters. A lot of these dudes is home right now. Rest in peace to Tiny Sodi. For sure, rest in peace to Lil Sodi. And, man, we going to keep bringing y'all this heat, man. Rap news, street politics, the best hood channel on YouTube. Y'all make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe to this shit. Make sure y'all go follow Young and Jefe, man. We out.